All
Okay,
right.
this is Arthur Bush. You're listening to Radio Free Flint, and I have as our podcast guest today Rico Phillips of Flint, Michigan. Rico is a retired Flint firefighter, and now he has a job with the Ontario Hockey League as its diversity director. Rico is one of those guys that we have people that join stuff, we have people that give their money to stuff. Rico probably does a little of those, but he does stuff. Welcome, Rico. I'm proud to have you as my guest.
Thank you, Art. It means a lot to be your guest. I remember the beginning of my career, you were in the prosecutor's office, and I always looked up to you. And then when I got more involved with our union and started to do things that union officials do, which is intertwine within the community leaders, we patched a friendship immediately. So it's an honor to be here with you as well.
I would like to ask you some questions about who you are and how you got to where you are today. So, why don't we start by where you grew up?
Sure, I was born in 1969, so as I say, the summer of '69, actually. And the reason I point that out is because I want to let everyone know I was a '70s kid for my youngest days. I was born and raised here in Flint. My mom and dad. My mom is interesting that a lot of people don't realize is an immigrant from West Germany. She was born and raised in Augsburg, West Germany, and she's actually a war baby in the sense that she was born in 1939 and the start of the World War. Somehow her parents and her sister survived the war. She doesn't talk a whole lot about it. She was a young, very young. When the war ended, she was 6 years old. But the aftermath of that, I'm sure, created the character that she is today. Anybody knows my mom knows she's quite the character. But anyways, she immigrated here to the U.S. after I have three siblings. They're all older sisters of mine, and they were all born in Germany. Their father was in the military, and then when he was being discharged or whatever, he was at the end of his tenure with the military. He came back to the United States, and ironically, he was from Beecher. So that's how my mom ended up here in Flint. They were divorced, and then she met my father, who is actually originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but like so many people, migrated to Flint for the GM jobs. So after he did his service with the Korean War, he found out about Flint, Michigan, and came up here and started working for AC Sparkplug. And so that's where the unions met. And when I grew up. It's an interesting story, Art. It's hard to explain to people what it was like growing up in a multicultural family, not just a multiracial, but a multicultural family. So I tell people this that when I was outside playing with my friends as a youngster, I was in good old USA. All the stuff that kids do that you can imagine we did in the '70s. And then, but when I went in the house, it was Germany there, man. So things were led with an iron fist. You eat all your food, Rico. Don't waste any of your food. And she'd tell me these really great. So I'm skinny to this day because I think my mom gave me a complex about eating. But um, honestly, I couldn't ask for a better scenario because of the situation for me growing up multicultural. It was new, more, it wasn't, when I say new, it wasn't quite as commonplace as it is today to have be a biracial person in the world. And so it was just met with challenges from both not fitting in with white kids and not fitting in with black kids. But I was fortunate I grew up on 10th Street, which is just to the south of downtown, right off the other side of I-69. The little neighborhood that I grew up in was very diverse. It's all working class folks, some a little bit more on the under index side, but honestly, there was black people and white people there intertwining each and every day. So it was a very good place to grow up, especially being biracial. I started off at Oak School, so all the folks that are really know their history of Flint. I went to Oak Elementary School, which is now it's a senior home called the Oak Center, I believe it's called. But anyways, yeah, I went there until it closed in 1976. I did my first grade there, kindergarten, first grade, and then I ended up being transferred over to Lincoln Elementary School, and that's where I really did my growing days as an elementary school kid. And When you know how it was, when I was in school, man, I was a part of every activity that there was. And it wasn't because my parents were forcing me to, it's because everybody was doing it. And if I didn't, I felt left out. So I participated in virtually everything from basketball, which I wasn't some great athlete. I didn't have, I don't know, I was an awkward kid, but I did participate. Even in floor hockey, that's really where I found out what hockey was when I was a kid playing floor hockey. So as I got on in age, my middle school, it was actually junior high school when I started there, was Zimmerman. Yeah, I went to Zimmerman. Now I rode a bus to get there, and it was still seventh, eighth, and ninth, my seventh grade year there, and that's where I got to realize there's so many more people in Flint than I imagined. It was actually pretty intimidating to have ninth graders in the building with you as well. My experience at Zimmerman was one of where, like most middle schoolers, they're starting to find themselves. But what was cool about finding myself there was, like I said, the dynamics of all the different people that I was getting to know outside of my little circle of friends in my neighborhood. And that's where I really started to try to figure out who I was going to be and what I wanted to do in life. I can recall in a social studies class, my teacher, his name is Carl Barone. We had 1 week we're talking about occupations and careers. That's all you got back then, where today it's a whole curriculum. I can recall him going down the row of kids asking each of us what we wanted to do in life. And I was really, really sheepish because I knew I wanted to be a firefighter, right? So when I was 6 years old, I watched the show Emergency. And because we only had one television in the house, my dad liked Emergency, so I liked Emergency, right? Just like all of us. But what I didn't realize is that he tapped into something hidden within me that I just wanted to be like those guys. And so when I was a little boy, I used to pretend I was a firefighter all the time. I have all my toys for fire trucks and ambulances and police cars. I would imagine all these things, and it really kind of set the foot forward for me as far as what I really wanted to do in life. So I was in class, and Mr. Barone, I was in eighth grade, and Mr. Barone asked us what we want to do. And I was like, oh, no, because at that point, you can't pretend you're playing fireman anymore. And, you know what I mean? It felt like I was going to say something like what a kid would say. It got to me. I said, I want to be a fireman. And he said, what'd you say? And I was, I want to be a fireman. And everyone started laughing, chuckling. That's what I was concerned about. And Mr. Barone said some words that totally inspired me. He said, everybody in this room, stop laughing now. He came to my rescue. He said, of all of you, he's one of the few people in here that knows what he wants to do. Rico, you should be proud of yourself. And I remember puffing my chest up like, yeah. And it just gave me that confidence, like, this is what I want to do. And so in eighth grade, I went to the American Red Cross when it was over by the main post office. And I took an advanced first aid and CPR course. Now, keep in mind, I was in eighth grade, and everybody else in that class were adults. I can tell you this, I was like, what did I get? I should not have come to this. I was like totally intimidated. And I was ready to leave, but the only reason I couldn't leave is my mom dropped me off. So I couldn't go anywhere. I had to stay. And little did I know that it inspired the adults in that classroom, and they nurtured me, and it set up the scene for me for years to come. After I left middle school, I went to high school at Flint Southwestern. Go Colts! I was a Colt. Started in 1983 as a freshman there. Within my first couple of months, I was asked to be the head athletic trainer for the school. The person who handles all the athletic injuries was Joel Harris. And Joel was a substitute teacher, and he had found out that I had this CPR and first aid class, and he asked me, would I be willing to help him, working with him as an athletic trainer, student trainer. I thought to myself, man, this is the golden ticket. I can start actually working with patients and get my crap and be ready. I can actually feel what it's like and prepare myself. I was absolutely right. Not only did it do that for me, Art, but it propelled me. I was a little lowly freshman, puny kid. And all of a sudden I'm working with the varsity football team, and those guys are my buddies. And I'm working with all these other different teams. And it was something that really, something to behold for me. And I cherish those moments because that's what led me into ice hockey. I was assigned to the hockey team. That's from my love for.
Southwestern had a hockey team?
Yes, we had a very good hockey team, actually. The hockey
Oh,
team went back as early as the earliest I know of is 74, 75, because the league didn't start until 71 or something like that. The Genesee County High School Athletic League, I think it was called. When I was there, we had a really, like I said, very talented team. We had Flint Northern also had a team. Flint Central had a team. In fact, Flint Central and us and Southwestern were bitter rivals. They had a very good team too, and when we played each other, it was ugly at times, just like any Central Southwestern game, right? I mean,
were you playing hockey or were you being a trainer?
I was just a trainer. I had not learned how to ice skate yet. I learned how to ice skate. After I watched my first scrimmage, I was like, I got to do this. This is cool. They're so fast and so much skill involved, and the players were really tight knit, because of all the skill and passion they had. And so I asked the coach, I said, Coach, if I get some ice skates, can I learn how to skate with the boys? And Dave Jensen is his name, and he laughed at me. And he says, we are a good team. Like, I'm going to let this guy can't even stand up on skates, pull the boards around, as we call it. I'm pulling the boards to just move, skate with these guys. Luckily for me, there was an assistant coach by the name of George Earl who took 10 minutes out of every practice and worked with me exclusively on how to skate. And that's what led me to all these fantastic things I've done in ice hockey, was becoming an athletic trainer in high school for the high school hockey team.
So what year did you graduate Southwestern?
I graduated in 1987. I got to tell, I think what's a really significant moment in my high school hockey career, as far as being an athletic trainer. In 1985, I was a trainer for the baseball team, and we had a star pitcher by the name of Chad Joslin who played on our team. And he was actually a transfer from Linden the season before. And the whole idea is because we had a really quality baseball team that he felt like Coach Rettman would be able to get him seen in the proper right. He's playing, in a Division I school as compared to Linden, where it's Division III. Chad was a great athlete. He pitched a one-hitter at Pontiac Central. He pitched a one-hitter of the doubleheader, and after the break, we're back up at bat. Everyone was sitting on the edge of the dugout, while we're batting, we're watching the batter bat. And all of a sudden, Chad was actually standing up at the other end, and I watched as Chad collapsed. Little did I realize at that very instant, but Chad was suffering a heart attack at 18 years old. Yes. So by the time I got over to him, he had stopped breathing and his heart had stopped. And at 15 years old, I had to start CPR on a fellow classmate, an 18-year-old, in front of all of our teammates and his parents and everybody else that was witnessing, a whole nother team. And myself and a guy by the name of Keith Fry, whose brother played on the team, happened to be there. And we both worked Chad. First time, I couldn't believe that CPR class I took just a couple of years ago was actually reality was in front of me. When the Pontiac Fire Department got there, they whisked him away, and I seemed to, give him shocks. Defibrillate him is what I'm trying to say. Act like I didn't know the word. I've been doing this work for how long? But he was defibrillated at least 3 times that I witnessed. And the whole time between the time we got on a bus and started heading towards the hospital, I believe that he's going to live and he's going to be all right. He's 18 years old. He's an athlete. I watched him shock him. Unfortunately, he succumbed to the heart attack and he died. And it was a moment in my life that I was beside myself, Art, and I wanted to step away from all of this. I did not want to use my hands that way again because I couldn't imagine the pain, going through that type of pain over and over again if I wanted to do this type of work. Not recognizing that, first of all, I was 15, and second of all, this person I knew. And third of all, it was very pressure filled with not just the moment, but all the people. I was called into the office later that week by Mr. Wilson, who was the principal at Southwestern at the time, and Ken Wilson. I was like, what are you calling me to the office for, man? Like, I didn't do nothing wrong, but I was beside myself, and everybody knew it. I wasn't talking to anyone, and there they were, the whole baseball team, everyone, including Chad Joslin's mom. And she put her arms out and hugged me and said, and thanked me for giving them hope that day, Art. That was a moment I realized that I wasn't going to save the world like on emergency. that I was just going to offer hope through the work that I do. So it led me down the path that I continued on to follow my dreams and goals to become a firefighter.
Where did you end up next, in college?
Well, I went to basically trade school for firefighters and EMT. So I went to an EMT course in Mod Adult High School first. That was the easiest way for me to start working in the field to find out if this really was what I was made of. And shortly thereafter, I had applied for the Flint Fire Department, but I wasn't hired, and I knew that there was some things missing. That was credentials and experience. So I actually moved to Flint Township to join the Flint Township Fire Department as an on-call firefighter. So there I received training, the experience that I needed, nowhere near the expertise yet. And then when I went back for a second time, applied the second time, I was hired by the City of Flint Fire Department in 1992 and started following my dreams from there. I recall when I first was hired, it was hard to contain myself because my dreams were there. I mean, I visited the fire station that I was working at when I was 15 years old, 13 years old. I met and got to know the firefighters. So for me, it was this incredible journey that I was coming to fruition, and here I was.
Where was that fire station?
I was the main fire station, 310 East 5th Street. I say that number because I always had to remember where you started. But yeah, it was at the main fire station downtown Flint. What I used to do as a kid, 13 years old, I'd ride my bike because I didn't live far. I lived, like I said, downtown. There was a parking lot across the street from there. After I got out of school and after the business people left the parking lot, I would ride my bike and I'd sit over there in the parking lot and just kind of think. And I'd be waiting in the summer, of course, for them to get a call and just watch them slide the poles and jump on the trucks and race out of the station with the lights and sirens on. I mean, it just thrilled me. And more times than not, I didn't get, it didn't go my way, but the times that it did was moments that I cherished. And so one day, a firefighter seen me sitting over there, and he must have recognized me from sitting there before and called me over. And his name was Charles Lewis. Charlie said, "What are you doing sitting over there?" And I said, I told him, and he said, "Why didn't you just come over and say, come on in?" And I said, "Well, I didn't think I could." And he said, "Absolutely." And that guy ended up putting me under his wing, Art. Every time I visit every third day, his shift. It became like my work. After school, after I do my homework, going to the station for a couple hours. And I would visit with the firefighters, and he would take me out on the ramp and show me how the truck worked. So before I became a firefighter, I knew how the pump operated. I knew what was involved with the pump. And I felt so enriched by this man. I was actually at his retirement, his last day. They have a retirement party on your last day. Joe Davis, who is credited as being the first Black Flint firefighter, I became buddies with him as a young teen, and I was at his last day. So I had all these things to build off of and say that, man, I can't believe I made it. Now what am I going to do?
You became a Flint firefighter, and that's when you joined the major leagues of firefighting.
Yeah, you can say that again. I mean, I felt like I was going to the major leagues, but then when I was there, I was like, oh my gosh. Because when I hired in 92, it was the beginning of the influx of Devil's Night and its impact on our community. So it started in Detroit and then creeped its way north up here and got a stronghold in our community. And it had a lot to do with the sudden number of vacant houses that were available to unfortunately torch. So I can recall not just Devil's Night, and Devil's Night was a whole different thing. And in 1995, I think, or 94 was my first actual Devil's Night where I was working in the field as a firefighter. Personally, I went to 11 or 12 structure fires, which is unheard of. One crew going to that many in one night. There was over 200 fires reported in that one particular night. And I remember when we were getting on the trucks that night, I said, all right, here we go. It was like 10 to 6. And when we were going on our first call, and I didn't return back to the station until about 2 a.m. when we were completely out of air tanks and completely out of gas. So we had to go back and get a break. And we went continuously for over 12 hours. One of the other things I think impacted my career early on wasn't just the volume of fires, but the EMS work, the working on the ambulance, because we had our own ambulance service. So I was able to work with our community on a real hands-on basis. Unlike with firefighting, it's kind of abstract. With the EMS, you're in people's homes, you're in people's atmospheres, you're dealing with their crisis on the worst days of their lives. for those of us that work in EMS, and particularly in places, urbanized centers like Flint, it's an incredible mental load that it takes. But I have no regrets. It was some of the experiences that I have, both all good and bad. We all have our war stories. So I have hundreds of war stories I can go on and on with.
Well, we'll skip that part for a while. Now, eventually, Devil's Night became quite a big deal, and there were a lot of efforts to try to prevent it. With some success eventually. I don't know. Flint hasn't had a very good track record at solving arson crimes. In fact, not only did it have an extremely high rate of arson, but it had a very poor record of solving them. Why was that, and has that changed?
Arson is probably, and I'll have to tell you, is one of the hardest crimes to solve because you virtually have to go on inferences of information and evidence. So unless you have a witness who says, I seen that person actually start the fire, light the fire, then it's hard to convict a person. So when you're working in a community that's pretty much under index and people are on the edge and worried about their own safety, they tend not to want to speak out because they get concerned that their house could burn next with them in it. And that's one of the things, there's an intimidation factor involved. Second of all, just because from my work and what I understand, just because someone walks out of a house and then 10 minutes later it's on fire, that doesn't mean that you have the evidence necessary to say that house was set on fire. So these types of crimes, without the proper chain of people that are willing to say, I seen it, I witnessed it, I'm willing to stand up for my community and end this, it goes on and on. And then there's all these other variables are to why there's arson fires. One of them is gang initiation. Another one is blight control, self-imposed blight control by neighbors. The other is just pure destruction. And then there's also the element of pyromania, people that set fires because they enjoy watching stuff burn. The only problem with all that is that it's very dangerous, not just for firefighters, but all the people en route to a fire that we come across when our lights and sirens are wailing. Those people are in jeopardy of us getting in an accident with them. And so that's why I've always tried to say, how can we do our part? What can we best do? And so back in those days, we had a little bit of an arson bureau. It kind of kept some things at bay at times because they would push around. And then they start sniffing around and say, hey, who's setting the fires? Then the word gets out, hey, they're looking for whoever's setting these fires, and then it kind of quells. What happened after our arson bureau went kaput for budgetary reasons, there was nobody pushing the arsonists around. So there was free fall. And that's really what created the blight of fire damage. Now, the federal government has come in the less than a decade, probably 5 years, and started to demolish vacant homes and vacant building structures. And that has created a lot less arson fires. From what I understand, they're going through it again right now for some odd reason. And because arson is so related to Flint, it's not news anymore. And so you don't even really hear about it as much. There's a lot of vacant land in Flint right now, and it has to do with those vacant houses being burned. And then, of course, like I said, I think you're starting to see more demolition of some of those structures.
One of the things that cities do to stem arson is they start employing modern techniques that we use in criminal investigations, such as DNA evidence is used. So if somebody was smoking cigarettes at a scene before they set it on fire, or dropped a coffee cup or a soft drink glass, they interview that person and then go back to him. If he denies he was at the scene, you've got him at least standing at the scene. So
Right.
There are some things, but one of the things that you didn't have as much time to do, which you seem to always do in your spare time, and that was interact with the community. The Flint Fire Department in the day, when you were actually before you were born, they used to have programs in the elementary schools in which they would work with kids, explain to them about fires and what firemen do and prevention of fire. And they had what they called the Fire Prevention Bureau at the Flint Department.
I was in the junior fire department program at Lincoln Elementary School. I went through my house to our neighbor's house. And what they did slightly different then is you were able to get promoted. And so I actually promoted from firefighter or from cadet all the way up to fire marshal of that program. So honestly, I was wearing a badge in my mind since I was about 8 or 9 years old because of those firefighters. And in fact, when I got on the department, those firefighters, Emmanuel L. Farrell was one of them. He was Pete Mata was another one. They were both still in the fire department. And I went to Pete because I said, I want to start preventing fires. I don't want to just respond after everybody's house is burned up. It's not what I was expecting. It was thrilling for a moment, but when you look at the faces of the people who lost everything, that's not so thrilling. And so he encouraged me to start teaching fire safety, and I went right back to where I came from. When people talk about my community involvement, it all started from me teaching fire safety in the schools, and then I actually helped put together an event called the Flint Firefighters Field Day. That's what launched my career as a union official with the Flint Firefighters Union. Oh, the field day was an event where we brought together fire departments to have a softball tournament. Then we'd have a water ball, they would call it, where they have a big metal ball and the firefighters would be on both sides and they squirt the water. It was part of, they'd be on each team from representing their department. Then they have tug of war, all these activities. And what it was aimed to do was to highlight the firefighters and let them have competitive fun and then bring the community together. And we did that over at Whaley Park. And it was the first time we brought that into the city since I was a kid in '77 when it was at Kersley Park. And I remember that as being a kid. And so when I got my chance, once I was on the department, and I said, hey, I'll run this thing, can run it in Flint. And they're like, yeah, if you think so. And we did it at Whaley Park and we had a parade. It was the launch of so many good things for me in my career right there. After becoming a firefighter, I became what's known as a second driver. So you're in driving training, but you're also expected to be able to know the territories of each and every jurisdiction within our city. Became an apparatus operator, which meant that I was in charge of basically one vehicle per shift. I mean, my truck, he called it, it'd be my truck. I'm responsible for it and everything that happens with that. Eventually, I became the quartermaster of the Flint Fire Department. So I took a test and took a promotion. And my role there significantly changed from anything I'd done before, where I was now responsible for basically the equipment and supplies that the fire department uses. So everything from the gear that we wear to the supplies that what they use in the station, because as you likely know, we live there 24 hours, to the supplies we use in the field, like whether it be hoses or bandages, whatever. So I had a different role. I worked 9 to 5 in that last role for the final 5 years of my career.
You also became involved in the firefighter union.
I was early in my career. I was very fortunate, Art. I barely had 3 years on the job, and I was running for a prestigious position as an executive board member, second vice president. And the reason I say that, because everybody that was on the board had well over 16 years on. These were folks that were, been in the trenches for years. And here this rookie was, for all intents and purposes, coming onto the scene thinking that he wants to be a part of this. I think I had a lot to do with my passion and my ability to communicate well with others. My role that I was running for was community relations liaison for the Firefighters Union. So it was right up my alley. But little did I know it actually propel me into, say, political spotlight, because I wasn't trying to be a politician, but it certainly got me to a place where I was intertwined with the inner workings of, our local government, and having to negotiate with the likes of Woodrow Stanley and, his team of folks that were in the office, working in the office back then. Like I say, an incredible experience for a young person. But when I look back, I mean, I worked 17 of my 27 years was as a vice president of our union, and I have no regrets whatsoever.
You certainly were out and about in the community and put the best face on firefighting that was possible. Your interests all along have been community activity, not just community relations. So you became involved and took your passion for hockey and started to work in the community with your passion and helping others understand the game of hockey?
So my career path in hockey started off, like I say, as a trainer, but by my senior year, I wanted to know more about the sport. I was very fortunate, Art. 20 kids make the roster up. That's all. So you go to tryouts and you got to work hard to try to get you a spot. I was so fortunate my senior year, 19 other kids showed up and me. Otherwise, I would not have made the team. I was not ready to play yet. But I made the team, and so I can say my hat on that. My picture's in the wall, on the wall there of being a player. But also that same year, I become a referee, which is kind of amazing when I look back at it because I hadn't really learned how to stop yet. And here I am refereeing little kids that are skating circles around me. And so it's kind of a running joke, so to speak, because I was, I go out there looking goofy. Honestly, 2 months into my tenure as a referee in 1986, I blew a call and a coach called me over. The coach called me over and his assistant is the one who actually started berating me, and he called me the N-bomb. And he told me he's going to kick my tail out in the parking lot. And I'll be honest with you, Art, I wanted to leave the sport and never come back because that's a pretty hateful thing to say to anybody, let alone a 17-year-old. But I had an inspiration in my partner that day. He was quite a bit older than me. He told me it was time to stand up for myself, and not in that way didn't mean that I was supposed to go fight the guy, but stand up for myself and realize that I wasn't what he said. And he was trying to get to the deepest root of me to throw me off even further and hopefully never see me here again. And that I had to kind of grow up that day and realize that I'm going to come across racist in my world. And you had to learn how to deal with them. And that I actually had the authority to deal with them, but I cowered. That's the funny thing. When I look back at it, ironic thing, I don't know that it was funny, it was ironic. Throughout that time, I stayed in the sport and I got better at skating, and I started playing adult rec hockey, and I started refereeing a lot more and a lot bigger games, and I started to get my feet under me. The one thing I noticed, though, in the 12 years or so of my first 12 years of refereeing hockey is that I was virtually the only person of color in the arenas or the rinks that I was at, whether it be on the ice, employees, whoever it was. And that the players, in my mind, looked all the same. They're all from affluent backgrounds. They're all white kids who lived in suburbs and or rural settings, and it just really felt bland, I guess is the best way to put it. I wasn't necessarily looking to say, where's all the black people here? What's wrong with this situation? It was more like, there needs to be more people in general. I didn't know what the word diversity meant back then, but in common terms, that's what I was looking for. And so in my mind, I said, if there's a day that I could ever create a program that allows kids to come participate in our sport for free, and just kids from Flint, and man, that would be cool. And in 2010, my idea came to reality, and I created the Flint Intercity Youth Hockey Program, where we introduced the sport to kids between the ages of 8 and 11 that live in the city of Flint. That's the only place they reside. I have taken a couple just outside the city, but the focus are the kids from Flint, because there's virtually no ice hockey in Flint anymore. There's no outdoor rinks. The Flint Firebirds are there, and I love the Flint Firebirds, but they're virtually the only bit of youth. There's no real youth hockey that's existing. No associations, no grab for the kids in Flint. So,
because one of the things Flint had when you were growing up and I was growing up is they had these ice rinks that were run by the city.
Right.
Throughout. I don't know how many locations there were because I didn't play hockey, but I can't remember. Yeah. I know there was one downtown.
Yeah, and that's the one I would walk by on my way to Oak School, Memorial Park. And so that's how I knew of the sport, where today's kids, they don't even know of the sport. And so what's great about it is since 2010, we've had to kind of do some revamping of some things, but it's a community collaborative effort. This isn't just Ricco. It's just Ricco putting these sources together, like the United Way, like Elgar Credit Union. Like, I got to really point out the folks on my hat. I'm not wearing it because I was promoting them today. It's just ironic, but Pirani's Hockey World, they're the first ones that believed in my idea and gave me absolutely free 50 sets of equipment, head to toe equipment, so I could launch it.
That's really been a barrier for kids in the city is the expense of hockey.
Yes, and that's the truth. Ice time is at a premium. It's well over $250 per hour just for the ice, just to rent the ice, and then all the other elements that are involved, whether it be instruction. And we're not even talking about the equipment. Equipment will run the average kid somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 to fully outfit, and that's just with the most basic of equipment. So that isn't competition level equipment. That's a little bit more protective. I know that going into this too, Art, and I'm not foolish to believe that every kid that comes to our program is going to stay with the sport. But what I am trying to do is offer our community an opportunity or give them an opportunity to experience something like they couldn't anywhere else, to become fans of the sport. And hockey isn't just played on ice, and that's what I'm learning now. And in fact, at some point or later today, I'm going to be playing floor hockey. We're starting a program at the Sylvester Broom Empowerment Village, where we want to introduce floor hockey back to kids in our community. To me, that's what's most important, giving the kids an enrichment, giving them opportunities to meet different mentors, and the mentors have different opportunities to participate with kids.
Rico, how many years have you been involved with this inner city Flint hockey?
Yeah, so we started in 2010, but then after our first year, I ran into some glitches in the program, so I had to kind of revamp how we were going to do things. I had to get more people on board. I was the end all to be all, and it was too much for Rico. I'm still an active firefighter. My head was spinning around on my shoulders. What I did is I kind of waited a couple more years. So 2014, we worked with United Way, and those were the first going to support the ice rental. Between that and Pirani's Hockey World, we started in 2014. So it's only been a few short years, but I got to tell you what's difficult is I have 30 free slots. That includes transportation. Mass Transportation Authority works with us to provide your ride style transportation from their house to the arena and back home. And we have all this collaborative thing that's happening. I have volunteers who are high school hockey teams that are teams like Grand Blanc, Powers, Davis, and the list goes on. They come in and they're our weekly volunteers, so we're enriching their lives as well by working with our kids. I have 30 slots and I can barely get 20 kids. What that has to do is this disconnect between our sport and our community, and that's what I'm trying to patch right now.
Your activity as a referee continued. You're not refereeing now.
Yeah, I still am. 34 seasons complete this year. Let me tell you, it has been met with trials and tribulations, but mostly good things, especially the last decade or more of my career. I'm a very personal person anyways, but when I'm on the ice, I try to maintain myself as who I am. And so because of that, I have admiration from most players and most coaches. And so wherever I go, I'm well received, which is something you probably don't hear too many referees talk about in their lives, about how well received they are by people before, during, and after games. So I feel very blessed that I still am able to referee.
Do you play hockey still?
Yeah, I still play too. I play in the rec league over at, now we're at Crystal Fieldhouse in Burton. I did take this past year off once the pandemic hit, so I did not skate. But I recently played in the Mid-Michigan High School Hockey Alumni Tournament. It's an adult tournament, but it's made up of only players and teams from high school. So no travel players are involved. You had to have played high school hockey, and it is one of the coolest events you could imagine, Art, because when we put our jerseys back on, I'm wearing a Southwestern jersey. It doesn't look the same as it did back then, but we're all wearing our jerseys representing our schools, and our heads kind of click a little sideways, and we skate a little harder. Even at our age groups, we skate as hard as we can at 40 and over, or 30 and over, or 18 and over. Our families come out, and it's a great event, and I'm very proud to be a part of that.
You ended your career with the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall what year that was.
It was in 2019.
That must have been a sad day for you.
To be honest with you, Art, the last several years when I took the role as quartermaster, I was kind of waiting until, I had the time in, which is 23 years to retire. And once I did, I was kind of like on cruise control then, trying to decide what to do next, what next would look like, because I'm relatively young. I talked about that badge I put on, that fire marshal badge or whatever badge it was when I was 8 or 9 years old. Well, I still had that in my mind, like, how am I going to take this badge metaphorically or physically or any other way off of my chest for the last time and not be Firefighter Phillips anymore? It became my identity, and that was great. And it still is great. I still am very proud of that. But by the same token, it left me in a bad spot trying to decide how to change my mindset. I knew that my time was up. It wasn't that I was irrelevant, but it had taken a mental toll on me. Mentally, it wore me out. So, but I didn't know how to take it off. Suddenly, I was nominated for the Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award by the NHL. Once that nomination happened, I started to see myself as someone other than Firefighter Phillips. Like I felt like I had a future in hockey, bigger than I ever could imagine. I didn't know what it was. I was so fortunate in June of 2019 to win the Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award for the work that I've done with our program in our community. I won the award in Las Vegas at the NHL Awards. For those of you who don't know what that's like, it's like going to the Grammys or the Emmys or any major award show. I found out at the moment my name was called there's two other finalists there. When I was able to go up on stage and represent the Flint community, it sounds cliche, but it was a moment that I'll never, ever forget. I knew the gravity of that moment when I said, I want to thank my friends, families, and supporters from my hometown of Flint, Michigan. I could just feel electricity, the pride that was coming from Flint. And so that's when I was able to, when I got back from Vegas and I seen billboards, electronic billboards with my face on it that said, "Congratulations, Rico." I knew that I had something else in my future. And so I decided at that point, that summer, that I was going to retire. And so, yes, it was very sad because I was turning a page. And I think what was most sad for me is, like, I won't be able to teach fire safety in that uniform anymore. That's probably the biggest impact. I won't be able to go to schools and teach career development as a current and active firefighter. Now I'm retired. It may not seem the same, have the same effect. And so there's little things like that I miss the most. The crew members had all kind of evolved to a younger group. So I missed the older crew members, but I wasn't sleeping at the fire station anymore. So I kind of transitioned. So honestly, I was ready for something fresh, and here I am.
Now you did something fresh, and you had an opportunity that recently came available to you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so after I won the award, I was on a roll. I was being invited in places that I could have never imagined, including the Detroit Red Wings invited me down to drop the ceremonial puck drop, and I actually was able to speak to the Red Wings, give a pregame speech, and read out the starting lineup, which is incredible stuff. I mean, I want you to keep in mind, I've been a coach also, and so all these things were coming to culmination. I remember as I stood in front of the Detroit Red Wings with literally 10 minutes to prepare for what I was going to say, the first words out of my mouth were, "I'm just a kid from Flint." And that's all I could think at that moment. How did I get here? And I thought back to all the things we've talked about thus far, Art. And so George Floyd, after that, George Floyd was killed. And I bring it up as brief as I can because it's not a brief subject, but it inspired me to want to speak out louder and have a bolder statement. But I knew my voice wasn't with Black Lives Matter. It wasn't, I couldn't find another place that really was adequate for me that I felt, other than just go out and make a statement. What's that going to do? And so I found my voice in hockey, and I decided I was going to propel my voice. So I contacted David Branch from the Ontario Hockey League, who I'd met months before, and asked him if anything was being done with diversity and inclusion. And he said, ironically, we've been wanting to work on this, and it led to several phone calls and eventually the creation and appointment to the Director of Cultural Diversity and Inclusion for the Ontario Hockey League. And in the meantime, I also work with a group of Black professional NHL players to help do some of the same things using grassroots programming. And we're going to try to do some efforts across the entire landscape. So I'm doing some I call it second calling. I'm not lying. I've been talking to families, to players, to officials, to all the people that are involved in our sport, and having these courageous conversations, as I calling them, opening up dialogue about diversity and inclusion, about race relations, and about how to better understand one another so that we can hopefully get along better, especially in our sport.
Does the NFL have a diversity leader?
I'm not sure of that. I would only assume so. So, like I'll give you the NHL. The NHL has an entire department or team that works on this. So, USA Hockey, which is like the parent organization for all amateur hockey in in the United States, has a person that works with diversity and inclusion. But as far as I know, I'm the only person working in major junior hockey from a league-wide standpoint.
A lot of people in the Flint area, not necessarily just within the boundaries of Flint, but a lot of people in the Flint area,
Mm-hmm.
they identify as Flintstones.
Yeah.
Do you identify as a Flintstone?
I absolutely identify as a Flintstone. In fact, in my acceptance speech of my award in Las Vegas, I said, "Attaway I was trying to say Flintstones to my Flintstones, and all kinds of words came out. But that's what and the reason I say Flintstones, like when I think of a Flintstone, it's hardened, it's resilient, it stands the test of time. And I think when I think of not just folks that I've worked alongside of, but the mentality of a lot of the people here, like you can keep kicking at us. Like anybody who's from Flint knows we can talk crap about our city if we want, but if you say one bad word about Flint, we're ready to go down with you, right? Because that's that Flintstone mentality.
Rico Phillips, thank you for joining me on Radio Free Flint. You're an amazing person. I wish you the best in your new job. I especially wish you and your group that are working with the kids in Flint the best of luck. This is Radio Free Flint. We'll see you the next time. Thank you.
In this together. If I can't see, don't blind me more. If I don't hear, teach me to roar. There's a far and distant shore we'll reach together. We're walking out on broken glass. Our footsteps, blood can't rid the past. We can be first, we can be last. We all choose together. Dying under murder's knee, we can't breathe till all are free. It's no longer you or me. We all die together. When we rise up and cry no more, and love surrounds the dogs of war, being better than before, as we march on together. Together. I need you and them, I need her and him, I need through thick or thin to be together. 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 Together.